Joined now by TSN Hockey Insider, one half of the Ray and Dregs Hockey Podcast, our Wednesday regular. Go Greyhounds of Loyola University of Maryland. Huh?
Yes.
This is lacrosse, right? That's big lacrosse territory.
Yeah, men's lacrosse. Good buddy of mine, his son, Adam Patra, plays for Loyola, and they just picked up a big win over, I think, Navy. I follow casually because, I know the family well. But they've got the semifinals coming up on the weekend against Boston University. So this is big league stuff. But, not to boast the Potter family here, but, with children, you have opportunity to boast on occasion. This family has Adam, who's on scholarship at Loyola, will be a doctor. Matt Patra, the middle son, plays for the Guelph Storm, is drafted by the Boston Bruins, probably going to sign a pro contract very soon. And the youngest, Abby, was the Esso Cup top defenseman last summer. And I believe she's committed to Merrimack. So I love my kids dearly, but they got cheated in the gene pool here. Who's kidding who?
Would you commit to a trade? Kids for kid package for kid package. Insider trading.
No, I wouldn't, obviously.
Throwing a pick and maybe you think
maybe. Let's talk about how we might sweeten the pot here a little bit.
Last week you were talking about your son being a meathead at a tournament.
He had his
Vegas. All right, let's get after it, Dregs, because you have new info on the Vancouver Canucks, and it sounds like they're busy, or at least want to be busy.
Wanting to be busy, yes. Patrik Allvin is making his calls, mostly focused on non-playoff teams for obvious reasons, right? That's where the audience is most willing to listen. The general manager is still in the playoffs, are tied up with what they've got going on. This would come as zero surprise to anyone who's familiar with this show. The Vancouver Canucks clearly are trying to work as hard as they can to get more competitive and to get better for training camp and next year. Well, how do you do that? We still know that they've got some cap-related problems that are going to have to be remedied. But in addition to that, they're trying to rebuild that blue line, and they'd like to add a number 3 center. So it's going to be interesting to see how things all play out here. But they're having conversations. And, I think those conversations to some degree still include the likes of JT Miller. Wouldn't say that, there's progress being made on any front, but I do know that Allvin is open to every possibility within reason, right? Mm-hmm. Within reason. I don't want people listening to say, oh my God, that sounds like they're, considering this player or that player. No. You've got your foundational guys. They're not going anywhere, but Vancouver's willing to be aggressive.
Is he trying to acquire roster players, like established NHL roster players, or is he trying to find the 3-year-old guy, failure to launch kind of prospect guy?
Well, I followed up with that, and I thought that they'd be more age sensitive. I really did. No, they're open to anything. They just know that they've got to be deeper and they've got to be more competitive. Look, they're most likely not taking on players with term, significant term anyway, unless it's a great fit, or an older player that just doesn't make a lot of sense. So there would be some parameters in all of this, but I thought it would be more age sensitive than what it sounds like it could be.
Interesting.
What about Boeser and Garland, Drags? I know you've tried digging there. Do you know anything about those two wingers and the possibilities of a move?
I don't, but again, I'm willing to at least put players like that into that group if anything is possible. I think that's fair. Aside from the young pieces that we still don't entirely know about, then you've got your clear established young guys like Pettersson and Hughes. They're not going anywhere clearly. But beyond that, I don't think that you can exclude Garland or Brock Boeser. Look, they're going to have to find a way to make the money work, especially in an environment where we know the salary cap isn't expanding in any significant way. So if it's not JT Miller, then doesn't it have to be Garland or Brock Boeser?
Yeah. I'll remind everybody, 7 years ago, May 25th, 2016, the non-playoff Vancouver Canucks, I believe we were on the eve of the Stanley Cup final, in the conference final, swung the Jared McCann, Eric Goodbranson trade with the non-playoff Florida Panthers. Betting was itchy trigger finger at the time for a big physical defenseman, because some fans believe, Dreg, that you're not allowed to make trades after the deadline. You got to wait until the summer starts. But no, we sometimes see trades, and even sizable ones, in the Stanley Cup playoffs between non-participants.
Well, speaking of that, there's fresh carcass for the Vultures to circle here with the first round over and done with, and some teams that may be licking wounds and looking in the mirror quite a bit, and you know, a lot of people are jumping on the connection between Alexis Lafreniere and Emily Castonguay, but regardless of whether or not you want to connect those two dots, the Rangers are interesting because they've got a lot of younger players that just refuse to fully blossom. And do they have patience for them to fully blossom?
Well, that would be a team, Blake, that I would have circled on my bingo card, right? Yeah. And I don't know that there's any connection yet. But again, given the information that we have that the Vancouver Canucks are touching base with non-playoff teams, well, the Rangers are a non-playoff team, and there has to be some, borderline forensic auditing of what went wrong there. Many are speculating, Gerard Gallant, the coach of the New York Rangers, in trouble. Well, yeah, plausibly he is, right? But at the end of the day, you look at the players that weren't able to deliver, and Alexis Lafreniere is on that list. He's high on that list. So, maybe it just hasn't worked for him in New York. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. Doesn't mean that there isn't going to be more opportunity, and he's going to find his way. If I'm Patrik Allvin, I'm having that conversation with Chris Drury. I 100% am. And I'm also calling Billy Guerin in the Minnesota Wild and wondering if there's not a fit there with, Boeser or JT Miller or some other piece. The Minnesota Wild were in tough against the Dallas Stars. We knew that series was going to be a scratch and claw type of affair. It was, and then it wasn't. And Dallas just took over that series. So that's left, that market reeling, and no doubt left Billy Guerin looking deeply at what he has and what he doesn't have, and recognizing that, he's going to have to do some work. But one thing we know about Billy, and maybe Drury to a point based on the changes and the ads that he made prior to the NHL trade deadline, Billy Guerin's an aggressive general manager, and he's not afraid to take a chance. So those are two teams that I think if I'm the Vancouver Canucks, I'd be talking to.
What about Philly, Dregs, where Daniel Briere has said it's not a fire sale, but it is a rebuild, and I see the writers of Philadelphia are busy, creating trade tiers in terms of the players they could see leaving. How busy do you think the Flyers will be? Do you think there's any kind of fit with the Canucks?
Well, could be. I mean, Briere is certainly willing to be as aggressive as he can be. And, based on what he's facing, he's got to be willing to consider moving some younger pieces out as well. What kind of gums it up a little bit in Philadelphia is the fact that they're still looking for a president and a head of hockey operations. And Danny Briere, even though I believe he is going to be the long-term general manager, still has the interim label attached to them. So they're trying to get through their process of hiring that head of hockey operations and team president. So, that doesn't mean that Briere isn't having conversations. Of course he is. The appetite is strong for change there, but change finally in a right way. For so many years, Philadelphia ownership just insisted, look, we can't be a renovation or a rebuild team. If we're going to transition, it's got to be on the fly. So let's add a piece here or there. Let's tinker. But they never fixed the problem. And I think that the appetite now is to do it the right way. So there's some pain and suffering ahead for fans in Philadelphia, but that speaks to, again, a management group being pretty aggressive. So they'll be on the list.
Tyler Myers is off to the World Championships, joining Ethan Bear. Could be 2/3 of the right side of defense for Canada comes from the Vancouver Canucks. I know you've been doing some reporting there. How close to we are an official roster for Canada?
Well, real close. It's it's been a challenge for Hockey Canada, but you could say the same of USA Hockey. And I haven't checked in on all the European federations, but it's the World Championships are always a bit of a challenge. And then from a Canadian standpoint, if you look at the available cast of players, you're like, ooh, geez. I mean, there's been kind of speculation around hockey that maybe Sidney Crosby would consider going and playing for Canada again. I was told yesterday by Pat Bersani's not going. So I guess we can squash that possibility. Hockey Canada wanted to give Connor Bedard the space that he needed, but would have had interest in bringing him over. The time just isn't right for him. And he has experienced a lot, including 2 World Junior Championships, one in the summer and then one at Christmas, and everything that he went through with the Regina Pats. And, we've got the draft lottery looming. But I think Doug Armstrong and Steve Yzerman and Scotty Salmon have done a good job of piecing together a list of players who legitimately want to be there, right? Like, I posted some of the names out there, and that's what social media is all about. Everybody piled on Milan Lucic, and what is this going to be, the goon squad? I mean, come on. He's a proud hockey player who, can play the game. He's certainly not as quick as he once was, and he was never fast. But why wouldn't he want to go? Good friends with Tyler Toffoli. Their families can experience and enjoy part of it. I mean, I think Hockey Canada is thrilled to have some of the experience. It's just not going to be as star-studded a roster as I'm sure everyone was hoping for.
And lastly, Dregs, the Selkie Trophy.
Yeah.
You're a voter.
Yeah.
Of course, there's some Vancouver fans upset Elias Pettersson wasn't one of the nominees. There are also
one of the 3 nominees.
Yes, finalists. Of course, there's some people in Los Angeles upset as well.
Yeah.
Anze Kopitar wasn't amongst the 3
I get it.
Jared Stahl, his former teammate.
I get it. Jared Stahl tweeted about it last night and just made the bold accusation that those of us in the East don't stay up late enough, to watch Anze Kopitar and everything that he does with the Los Angeles Kings. What I would submit is that Anze Kopitar is number 1 on my ballot with the Lady Byng. Now, when you look at the Selke Trophy, I had Pettersson on my list of 5. I did. But I think, and I don't have the list officially in front of me, but Jordan Stahl was on my list. Patrice Bergeron, through longevity in the season that he had, deserves to be on the list. I didn't have Kopitar on my Selke ballot. I didn't, but I had Pettersson. So what I would say is, and I don't get overly ornery, because at the end of the day, when the awards are announced and section by section, all media who are given a ballot, it's full disclosure. Everybody can see who I voted for and in what particular order. I'm 100% on board with that. I'm okay with it, and I'm okay with the backlash. But everybody who has a strong social media opinion on this, I mean, do it yourself. Just go through the process and then submit it to the world. And if you have more than 4 followers, chances are there's going to be some pushback.
Somebody's off the list, right? There's a line drawn somewhere, right?
There has to be. I mean, again, in the Selke, I think of Nico Hischier in the year that he had with the New Jersey Devils. Is he not worthy? I mean, does a Western Pacific audience watch the New Jersey Devils closely to see how good Nico Hischier is? I mean, it's a ridiculous argument when people suggest we don't watch because it's too late.
They are subjective trophies too. It's not, the Art Ross, right?
Right. And that brings me to the follow-up question: what standard do you apply on the Selke, Dregs? Like, what do you dig into when you're looking to fill out that ballot?
Well, I think by definition, it's the most skilled with defensive upside. You have to have a defensive strength to your game to be acknowledged, or you should. Now, finding that magical balance is a challenge. Like, I think of Mitch Marner in the Toronto Maple Leafs as an example, right? I mean, Marner played 25 minutes in Game 1 against the Florida Panthers last night. Well, he's not playing that 5-on-5 or on the power play. He is a mainstay, a staple of the penalty kill of the Toronto Maple Leafs. And we all know he's a highly skilled forward. Had a great regular season. He's coming off 11 points in round 1, against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So he doesn't deserve to be on the list of 5. Of course he does. So those are some of the things that I like to balance when looking at the
At
Celtics. 17
goals, is Jordan, like you said it off the top, skilled. So there has to be some bottom line forward as well.
Yeah.
Would Jordan Staal's be sort of the minimum number of sort of points and goals? You wouldn't want to go much below that, would you?
No, and again, when I looked at it, I looked at the year that Pettersson had. I just thought that his game was so well rounded this season. And of course, there's a strong appetite for what more does he have? Does he have a lot more on the offensive side? Well, that depends on who he's playing with, what he's working with, what he has, the skill around him. But yeah, then you do incorporate Anze Kopitar as an example, Exhibit A, thanks to Mr. Staal, in this conversation. And for me, that's where the balance is applied here. But I mean, there. And then at what point, it's the frustrating part of the Norris Trophy for me as well, right? Because every year people will look at, okay, well, who are the top 5 point getters among NHL defensemen? Boom, 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 boom. There's my Norris Trophy ballot. Well, I don't look at it that way. I don't. I mean, traditionally you do go to the best point getters, and Erik Karlsson would be near or at the top of my list. But by definition, best all-around defenseman, well, there should be some really defensive defensemen on your ballot if you're actually going by the definition of what the award is about.
And let's face it, you're drawing lines, as you say, somewhere, Blake. Vancouver Canucks were the 8th worst defensive team in the league. They were the worst penalty kill. So if people held that against Elias Pettersson at some level when you're separating the great from the very good, I suppose that's understandable this year. Teams better defensive metrics. I think you're going to see Elias Pettersson on this list of finalists, if not lifting that trophy one day. We know you got to run, Dregs. Thanks for the time. All the best with Ray next week, and we'll catch up on Wednesday.
Okay, guys. Thank you.